Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name's Nathaniel and I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt. How are you doing today?
Really good, thank you, Nathaniel. Yeah, how are you? All good?
I'm doing well. My team is not doing well and it is stressing me the F out. So we'll go into it later on, but yeah, sporting wise, I'm not having a good time of it at the moment, but yeah. I'm excited to obviously go through today's episode. It's yet again another one of our recaps of the week, covering every team and every sort of game within that as we as we go into sort of cover week 3, going into week 4. So it's been a busy week. Patterns are starting to emerge, I think, of what teams are good and what teams are going to be struggling this year. But yeah, what are your thoughts going into week 4, end of week 3, going into week 4?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a lot of the teams sort of balance out and sort of start to shake out roughly where we'd expect. There's still a few teams that are still either starting a bit slow, or maybe a few teams that have started the season a bit hot that we're still expecting to kind of maybe balance out, or maybe that's where those teams are going to be. But yeah, I've still really enjoyed it. It's been loads of goals this week, loads of hat tricks, and loads of really kind of cool moments. So I'm really looking forward to getting into it with you.
Yeah. Well, before we start any of these episodes, we go through a bit of a news sort of around the league. Um, I think the big thing we should really talk about is the contract situations are not quite over yet. Thomas Harley, the young D-man for the Dallas Stars, has announced 6 hours ago that he signed a new contract with them. 8 years for $10.5 million a year contract. Big money. What are your initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, we've spoken about a few of these defensemen signing contracts, haven't we? We've spoken about the likes of, Luke Hughes and Lane Hudson and, people like that. And they've all been kind of in that 8 to 9 ballpark, maybe 9.5. Thomas Harley going, to 10.5, I think shows him, as far as the organization's concerned, how much they want to keep him around and how much they respect him. Big money. I think he's worth it. Again, with a lot of these contracts, I think for the first couple of years, I don't think the players are necessarily going to be at that, contractual money value, shall we say. But again, we talk about the rising cap. I think 10.5 million, sort of 3 to 4 years into that deal, will look really good. And I think that, in years 5, 6, 7, 8, I think it'll start to look like a bit of a steal. I'm a little bit curious as to where Dallas are going to find the money to do that. However, there's I think there's ways and means teams will always find to try and navigate the salary cap to make sure they've got everything tied up.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's maybe put a bit more quality on ice compared to the other players that we're talking about, and obviously he's done a good job of holding out just that little bit longer and see what other players we're going to get, and then telling Dallas, look, beat that. But the first thing I saw was okay, he's signing another big contract. Surely the Dallas Stars are going to be over the cap, or like, they're going to have to do some management in the off season coming up in order to afford this contract. And then we had a quick look just before we jumped on here about what their contract situations are looking like, and you look at so like Jordan Ben, is he going to retire? They got money coming off of obviously the buyout for Ryan Suter. That's another 1.43 coming off the books for them next year. But yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, like I say, I think Jamie Benn's due to retire at the end of the year. I would have thought anyway. I think just sort of age-wise, health-wise, that'll be a bit of money coming off. They still have Tyler Sagan's contract running until the end of next season. That's just shy of 10 million, I think. Now, that may potentially open up a window for them to look to trade that contract. I know Tyler Sagan's been there a long time. Obviously, maybe not the player he was a few years back. But if they're going to be looking at shifting that contract, whether it's half of the deal or the full contract, I still think they're going to have to give something up to a team in order to take that on. And there will be a few teams who would benefit from the addition of someone like Tyler Seguin for a year from a leadership perspective, and if they can get maybe a draft pick coming along with that, then that makes that deal all the sweeter. My main concern, I think, is that obviously they were having some salary cap issues this year. Maverick Bork, one of their really exciting young players, managed to sign just a 1-year deal to tie him over at still under $1 million. I think it was 870,000. He's hitting RFA status this year, and you've also got Jason Robertson hitting RFA status this year. It's obviously a big player, big goal scorer. Obviously they've added the likes of Ranton, and they've got Hintz. They've got some big time players. Potentially, is Jason Robertson someone that you could start to see in trade discussions sort of come the deadline, or when we get to the draft or something like that? I think that potentially represents an opportunity for Dallas to maybe sort of restock the cupboards a little bit. But I don't think any team is going to be trading for Jason Robertson unless there's an extension already done on the table, and then they're getting that deal. So yeah, I think it's a great deal for Harley. Obviously he's 24 years old. That deal's going to take him up to 32 years old, so still sort of very much in his prime. So they're going to be getting the best of Thomas Harley for his hockey career. I just wonder how that's going to look for sort of the rest of the squad and lineup, and seeing just how much the cap's going to rise to help accommodate for all of that.
Yeah. Just a quick touch on that before we move on. Seguin to the Nashville Predators. It seems like a move they'd like to make, an aging star player. Anyway,
potentially. I think they've got enough of those. I don't know if that's someone they'd want to take on, but I think maybe you look towards a team like San Jose. I think they would. I think they would welcome taking on someone like that, or potentially, the Calgary Flames if they decided to, kind of scrap everything and go into a bit of a rebuild. If there's a way that they can take on that contract and take on another asset with it, we'll have to see.
Yeah. I don't mean to talk about this at length, but I think it's worth noting maybe the positive move by the NHL and the Washington Capitals, that their assistant GM, Mitch Love, he was suspended fairly quickly for 12 months for issues in his personal life regarding to domestic incident, I believe. But the Washington Capitals quickly moved to sack him and get him out the door. So good work by the NHL and the Washington Capitals in dealing with an incident and not having that going on, really.
Yeah. Completely agree. I think, right decision made by the organisation, right decision made by the NHL. We know how these things work. I'm sure Mitch Love will eventually get another job back in hockey once everything dies down, maybe in a couple of years' time. But I think for the immediacy, and right at this moment in time, I think the organisation making the right move, the league making the right move, avoids any sort of publicity issues. I think very good all around, and I just hope that whatever matters that are brought about to Mitch Love, I just hope they're taken seriously for the sake of everyone involved.
Yeah. Right. Shall we go into some hockey games?
Oh, yes.
And teams being played? Yes. Another shuffle this week in terms of what division we're starting with, and therefore the teams that we start with. And I think we've skirted around this, but why not start with the best division in hockey? That seems sensible to me, and that is the Central Division. Now, the first team currently in the Central is a team that was first the week before, Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, fifth in our power rankings. They've had a pretty sketchy week. Obviously, still remaining on top, which just goes to show how good a start to the season they've had. But they've had a couple of sort of overtime losses to the Hurricanes and the Devils, but also beating the Devils and beating the Bruins. So what do you make of Colorado's week?
Yeah, it was always going to be a tough week, especially with those back-to-back games against the Devils, who have also started the season really well. To take 3 points from those two games, I think they'll be very happy with, especially with the game last night with an 8-4 win. That's a massive win. To lose in the shootout to Carolina, who as well have been a really, really good team to start the year, and a 3-2 loss to the Bruins, close game. I think 4 points from these 4 games. I don't. I think all things considered, especially with a couple of road games in there as well, I think is a decent decent turnout for that. And to have a 6-1-4 record after 11 games, really good start, and the kind of start we were expecting from Colorado. McKinnon's completely going off at the moment. McCarr's going off at the moment. Just so the stars being the stars, and racking up the points. So terrific. Terrific start for them.
Yeah, I'll correct myself. They actually lost to the Bruins and they didn't beat them. But nonetheless, they played close games. They haven't been blown out. They haven't looked the worst team, I think. Obviously, if you lose games, you are technically the worst team in that matchup. But they haven't looked like they're struggling in any way. They've just lost some close games. I think with the Hurricanes, I think they went 4-0 down within the first 13 minutes. And then pulled it back once they got their heads sorted out. Wedgwood had a bit of a nightmare that game and then lost in the shootout. But so I've got no concerns about the Colorado Avalanche, even though they've lost 3 of the 4 games this week. It's just a tough schedule. And next week they go up against the Golden Knights and then the Sharks. So, Golden Knights and Colorado, I think, are one of the better 2 teams in the league. So that'll be a very good matchup. But they should beat the Sharks.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, big time.
Right, so we'll move on then to the second place team, the Utah Mammoth. Okay, what a week for the Utah Mammoth, and what a season for them so far. They were 19th in our power rankings. I suggest when we redo them, they might be moving up quite a bit. They move up 1 spot to second, having been in third last week, but out of the 4 games this week, they've won 3, and fairly convincingly throughout. What do you think about the Utah Mammoth?
Yeah, terrific. I put it all down to the introduction of Tusky, their mascot. I think he's brought a good omen, and unfortunately, the winning streak did come to an end last night against the Oilers. But what a week, and what a week for Logan Cooley as well. The minute I drop him from my fantasy lineup, he goes on an absolute heater. So no, really happy for Cooley as the guy. Miffed to have taken him out of my fantasy team, but he's been
Thank
terrific,
you for
hasn't
that,
he?
because I picked him up now.
Yeah, not a problem. Always happy to help. But he bagged a first period hat trick. He's got 6 goals and 3 assists in his last 4. Nick Schmaltz as well, carrying on his really impressive starts to the season as well, and JJ Peterka getting in amongst the points. So really good, really good starts. That's 17 points in 11 games for Nick Schmaltz, which is fantastic return on him. Always really liked Nick Schmaltz. Loved him when he was on the Blackhawks as well. Always a very good player, and is proven that in Utah. So really good for them. Really good for them. It was a tricky 4-game road stint, and they've come away with 6 points from the 3 games. So terrific work from them.
A sneaky fun watch as well. You wouldn't have thought it, but the game's always high scoring and always
who'd have thought?
And
I just think, just as a final point on that, sorry to cut you off there. We're seeing, we really are seeing the benefit of the organisation trying to be proactive and competitive and everything like that. Because realistically, this lineup isn't too different to the one that lined up in Arizona. Obviously, they've had a few additions, the likes of, Peterka's come in since, and I think Sergachev came the year that they moved to Utah. But by and large, it's majority of the team is that Arizona lineup, and just the feeling around the team is so much different when you've got an organisation and owners that want to be competitive and want to push this team forward. And they've started like a house on fire, and long may it continue for them, because I think that those players deserve that, in my opinion.
We'll take ice hockey out of the desert, and you might get some better results. Who'd have thought it?
Tell that to Vegas.
Oh, yeah. I'll shut up about that. Third team. Let's move on, shall we? Winnipeg Jets. Down 1, obviously switched places with the Utah Mammoth. Again, they've had a mixed week. They've I thought they would have done better this week personally with the matchups they've played, but they got shut out against the Kraken before beating the moribund Flames, lost against the Utah Mammoth, and then beat my Wild in overtime. So yeah, they currently sat on 14 points, a record of 7-3-0 with a +9. They're again, even though they've lost some games and they've had a bit of a lower week, I still think they're a great team who are going to do well this year.
Yeah, agreed. They're kind of doing what we thought. 7-3-0 on the season. They're right up there. Yeah, I think on paper that week we thought they'd maybe do better. I don't think they lost to the Mammoth in a tight game. I think the shutout against the Kraken was a bit of a surprise. Connor Hellebuck's still with doing really well in that game regardless. So, but yeah, they're doing. They're doing well. They're still getting, good performances from all their players. And I think for, 10 games in for the Winnipeg Jets, we're seeing sort of what they're going to be, I think, for the rest of the season. They've got a couple of home games coming up against the Blackhawks and the Penguins. They'll think that that's probably, 4 points they can get. But with how those two teams have started, I think they're really going to have to work for it, even at home.
Yeah. They love playing a close game, do the Jets. So if you like close, tight hockey, then obviously they're a team for you. Quite defensive, even with the sort of the amount of goals scored. They're a highly defensive team. But yeah, I think they're solid and they'll continue to push on. But it is a competitive division, as we keep saying.
Certainly is.
We'll see what happens from there.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
So the fourth team in the Central Division, the Dallas Stars, up 3. One of the biggest movers this week in terms of how they've done. They played again 4 games, won 3 and lost 1 in overtime, and against some pretty top tier opposition. So yeah, they're making big strides here at the Dallas Stars. Do you think it's for show, or do you think this is actually who they are?
Yeah, well, they started with a great week, and then they had an off week, and then they're back again with another big week. So a little bit up and down to start the season. I'm sure they'll be hoping maybe it can start to balance out a little bit. But 7 points out of 8 available from those 4 games, and some really top opposition, as well as the Predators. So they've, again, some close games there. 3-2 loss in overtime to the Kings, 3-2 win against the Hurricanes, 3-2 win against the Predators, and then, a tightly contested 1-0 win with a Jay Cottinger shutout. So, great week for him. Obviously, as we discussed at the top of the show, the Thomas Harley extension, I think things will be looking up around Dallas, and they'll be hoping that they can push on from here. But another big up week. Let's just hope they don't follow it with another down week. Obviously, they've got a couple of road games against the Lightning and the Panthers coming up, which is going to be tough. But we'll see how they get on with those.
Yeah, I think rinse repeat for the Jets. Good team. They're going to be there or thereabouts, but highly competitive division. And will they make it? Will they not? We don't know. When we get to nitty gritty, I think the coaching will be highly scrutinised with the move they made. But I say that every week, don't I? So we'll go down there.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on then to the 5th team in the Central Division. One who I am surprised isn't kind of higher up. From every time I look at them, they seem to be banging goals in left, right, and centre. Take us through your Blackhawks.
Man, like they're still rolling, looking good, and I think we talked about it last week. The national perspective on this team shifting big time. 3 games played. Beat the Lightning 3-2, which was a game I watched and was a really, really gutsy performance. A goal late in the third period from Donato as well. Lovely goal that to grind that one out. A loss against the Kings. Again, they kept it pretty tight and they got that third goal on the empty net, but the Kings are one of those teams that can sort of defensively suffocate you. And when they got 2-1 up, it was just a really professional performance by the Kings, and they're a really good team, and so coming back in that was always going to be difficult. And then they went out and absolutely mollywopped the Ottawa Senators last night. Connor Bedard's first career hat trick, 4 points on the night. Most impressive thing about that for me was they took a 4-0 lead in that game. Absolutely blew them out the door in the first period. They then conceded the next three, and as they pinned it back to a 4-3 game. And the Blackhawks of the last 2 to 3 years, they would have gone on to lose that game. But they managed to pull themselves sort of off the canvas, so to speak, and rattled in a few more goals. Bedard getting the hat trick, Nazar on the empty net. Really, really impressive. Another great performance against the Lightning from
well.
Yeah, shorty on the and an absolute. Despite their best efforts from Shabbat to absolutely hack Nazar down, he was able to stay up on his feet, I think, and really impressive. And just I think again, this young team, they're just not letting anything affect them too much, and they're not getting too high with the wins, they're not getting too low with the losses. But I think potentially, we've talked about the third season for a lot of these guys, and Bedard and guys in his draft. Last night, I think was potentially the moment that the league sat up and went, God, this, we almost forgot about how good this guy was going to be. That second goal, if anyone gets a chance to watch it back, he more or less walks his way through the whole team, toe drags through the defender's legs and rips it past Linus Ullmark, who has been having nightmares of Connor Bedard since he first came into the league.
I think it's a great answer to a lot of questions that have been popping up this week in the media, etc., about how Celebrini versus Bedard, which will be a conversation that we'll have for many, many years to come. But
it's such a redundant
coming
argument.
Out that Celebrini.
Go on.
But it's coming out that Celebrini's a better prospect, a better player than Bedard, and is Bedard actually going to hold up to the stock that people were putting in him? And then he comes out and has a performance like that last night to make everyone shut up. But yeah, well, why is it a redundant argument? I think
it's like the Ovechkin Crosby thing. It's like, you know what? Why don't we just enjoy the fact that we've got two young superstars in the league, and let's just enjoy what they both bring. They're completely different players. They are in separate drafts. It's not like the Blackhawks passed on one to get the other or anything like that. Bedard was a consensus number 1 overall pick. Celebrini was a consensus number 1 overall pick. We saw this years ago with Ovechkin and Crosby, and I get that because they had a lot of, Pittsburgh and Washington had a lot of big playoff rivalries and stuff like that. But yeah, Crosby and Ovechkin couldn't be more different in terms of players, and I just think that, yes, we're going to inevitably be having this discussion for the next 15 years. So I'm kind of prepared for that, but I just think that it's like, yeah, Celebrini's probably a better two-way player. Connor Bedard's probably, a better offensive player. When all's said and done, Bedard will probably have more points than Celebrini, but Celebrini will probably have a Selke trophy or two. Like, they're just completely different players, and for me, it's just not worth the time, comparing the two. For me, anyway.
I disagree. When we go through, there's different types of rivalries and different types of competitions in sport, and you bring up Crosby things. I've said they're not in the same draft, and I agree with factually. You're not factually incorrect with the points that you raise, but I just think naturally two young players come into the league around about the same time. They're going to be selling millions of jerseys across their career. They'll be scoring lots and lots of points. They're potentially going to be the record breakers come to the end of their careers, which is going to be a long form version of a competition essentially. And I think it's quite fascinating. It's storylines, isn't it?
Yeah,
here we are talking about it.
100%. And I think when the Sharks and Blackhawks are in their sort of cup contention window, there will be some big rivalries that meet there in the playoffs, and I'm ready for that, and I think that will sort of jack the rivalry up a bit, and that'll be great. But I just think right at this moment, and I think the thing is for me is one is good while the others are bust. It's like it's such two kind of polarizing ends of the spectrum. It's not like Bedard's great, Celebrini's great, but Celebrini's a bit better. It's like, no, Celebrini's great and Bedard's garbage. I get that a portion of that as well is just people don't like the Blackhawks and they will take any opportunity to rip on them when they can. I get the reasons why. But yeah, I just think at this particular moment in their careers when they're both children, let's just enjoy watching their careers blossom and let's ramp up the rivalry when they start meeting in the playoffs. But these two guys spent all summer together training together, so there's clearly not that much of a personal rivalry there at the moment. They're just like they're good mates.
But Matt, who was learning from who in that training camp?
I think Celebrini's learning everything from Bedard, obviously. You monster.
I can't believe it's something. I didn't think you would be quite so not sensitive about it, but you're so in a certain camp in terms of your opinion on this, and it's definitely going to be something I'm going to keep bringing up just to get on your nerves.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Right, shall we? We spent enough time on the Blackhawks there.
Yeah, let's move down to let's take the train down to Nashville, shall we?
Yeah, hopefully not a quick stop. I think the best thing about Nashville Predators is their record. A good old football 4-4-2 record. 10 points on the season so far. They're in 6th place. They have moved up due to the shockingness of the two teams that we're going to be following on after this. But they started off the week with a 2-1 victory against the Canucks. Beat the Kings in a shootout. Great result for them. And then probably coming back down to average. They lost against the Stars and the Lightning in regular time. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the Predators this week? It's just fairly in mid territory.
Yeah, I think 4 points from 4 games against some decent opposition. I think they'll probably come away from this week maybe hoping they could have got another point. 5 points from those 4 games. I think they're looking at that as a really good week, especially with it being a big home stretch for them. But yeah, Nashville aren't great, are they? Like that, we know that they're not great. They're probably not going to be a playoff team. And I think they're just going to have to go on a week by week basis, celebrate the highs when they're up there, try not to beat yourself up too much on the lows, because ultimately they are going to be, they are probably going to be a lottery team this year. And yeah, I just don't see them pulling up too many trees. But as far as on a week to week basis go, as we look at them, I think it's a decent week.
A decent week. They got a couple of games which you hopefully might be able to push on. They're away at the Flyers, and then the Flames come to them. So really, if you're Nashville, if you want to make something of your season, you really need to be winning those 2 games, I'd say. But yeah, I think in this competitive division, I think they're in this position they're going to be around about in for the year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a good whistle stop tour on the Predators, I think, and we'll move into a more miserable team, shall we? But I'll let you lead with that.
The Minnesota Wild. What is going on here? We lost every game this week, and pretty convincingly every time. We lost against the Devils 4-1. And I watched that game and I just thought, you know what, okay, we're struggling a little bit, but the Devils are on a heater at the minute.
Yeah, they're a good
against
team.
The Mammoth. Good team, yeah. Go up against the Mammoth. Now, I don't know what to say about that. Slow start again, conceding goal after goal after goal. We did try to come back a few times, didn't work. And the same with the Sharks. We lost against the Sharks in overtime. That was a shocking game. And then we lost against the Jets. Now, I haven't actually seen the highlights or anything about the Jets game, but I don't think there'll be much surprise there. I mean, I just don't know what's going on. I don't know why we're not kicking on like we should be doing. It seems like we're trying to play quick and fast, play north-south, dumping the puck in and chasing and getting on the forecheck and stuff like that, but we just miss lane passes, slow starts, we're lazy, we're giving up, dropping passes on the blue line, causing breakaways and stuff like that. It's just awful hockey, and it seems like they're not motivated or spirited to do anything. I'm really at a loss to what to say. Normally, it's like if you have a bad week, you have a bad week, but we're in danger of being nothing this year.
Yeah, they're in a danger at the moment of kind of dropping out of the race and entirely, which is not a place where they want to be. Uh, they're already what 7 points off the division leaders. It's not a good look for them. They're just kind of really struggling at the fundamentals at the moment. Like you say, the basic things like the passes aren't landing on the tape of the stick. They're giving up way too many chances, and I really like that goaltending tandem in Minnesota. I really do. But a goalie can only do so much, and they can't be giving up as many chances as they have. So I think that Devils game, I wouldn't read too much into that. The Devils are playing really well at the moment, and you just got outplayed by a better team. The Mammoth as well. I'm sure a couple of weeks ago we looked at that game on paper and thought that's definitely a winnable game, but they're playing out of their minds at the moment, and even to take the Jets to overtime with the way they're playing, I think, you maybe look at that as a point gained. But, to lose those as well as the loss to the Sharks as well, which any team losing to the Sharks this season is going to feel down about it. Yeah, it's been a tough one for them. And I don't know, maybe we're starting to feel the weight of the Kaprizov contract already.
Dirt star, like a lot of his point production this year has come on the power play. And then that's dropped off the face of the earth. And he's doing all the same sort of silky tricks and spins and throwing off quick passes and stuff like that, which when your team's playing well and like it pulls it off, it looks great. But I don't want to say it's the supporting cast around Kaprizov that's the issue, because Kaprizov is also not really stepping up. But I think Kaprizov may be a player that benefits off a team that's doing well, and he can't really dig in and drag a team up when they're not doing so well. Ross is playing well, things like that. But when we haven't got Zuccarello, he's still out injured. Tarasenko is not doing enough at all. He's going half the game before he even registers his first shot. Now he's meant to be a second line sort of sniper, a goal scoring foil for the top line, and he's just not pulling his weight. Eriksson X being non-existent, the front of net play, which he's known for the tips and screens and stuff like that, he's not getting there. He's not doing much either. And the fourth line, the Minnesota Wild also have a problem where they are just doing their rookies dirty. Like there's all this talk about Boyum, who's actually smashing it out of the park at the minute. I think he's a top 3 scorer on our team this moment, but there's talks about maybe because of his defensive frailties for whatever reason that he might need to spend some time in Iowa. We sent Liam Ogren back down to Iowa as well, like because he apparently wasn't performing well, and Yorov, who is getting 5 minutes a game. It's just we're playing. Stroh's on the third line. Yes, he's quick. He's doing all right, but it's just nothing inspirational. We're relying on the old vets who simply aren't doing enough. And it's getting me really angry.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? And it's towing the line, like you said, with those rookies of do we keep them in? Is keeping them in the NHL going to actually damage them more long term? And for someone like Zeev Buium, if he's showing that he's excelling really at the offensive side of the game, but he's struggling defensively, then is he gonna learn more going and playing 25 minutes a night in Iowa? Or, potentially if he's going to just keep getting relentlessly shelled night in, night out in Minnesota, maybe they just need to, maybe you sit him for a game so he can just see it, see everything from the press box. But he's not.
He is not the issue.
No, I think Zeev Buium is currently the least of your concerns. And we had that discussion, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago when the power play was absolutely flying. And it was just goal after goal. But we did say potentially, the struggle is that they're not scoring much at 5-on-5, and that's always the risk that you run. Your special teams can be great and can carry you if you're able to be consistent with it. But if teams find a way to shut that power play down, all of a sudden they're going to really struggle to score. And we're seeing that to an extent. I mean, yeah, they were able to score 5 against the Sharks, but obviously they conceded 6, and it's just a little bit of a mess at the moment. They'll be hoping they can pull themselves out of it, but they've got to start pulling themselves out of it soon. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves kind of out of contention by Christmas.
Yeah, and even just if I just go back and hitting on the young players getting sent down to the AHL to learn the craft a bit more. I mean, Iowa is like equally as shocking. So they're getting shellacked every week and they're not doing well. Sending the rookies down there to again continue to lose, but learning at a lower level, like it doesn't make any sense at all. Like either at some point that they are making or breaking our season. Play them more. If they do well, great. If they don't, well, it's a lost year, but at least they've got some year of NHL experience under the belt. Anyway, I could rant all day about them, but we go up against the Penguins and the Canucks at home. Yeah.
One
We'll
of those
see,
games for me has to be a win. One of those has to be a win.
and a convincing one for me to feel any better about it. I don't want to see no scrape a 3-2 win, but
Mm.
still playing the way we are. Don't really care about that. I want to see sort of that reset. And if this continues, I think it's definitely going to be a head coaching change if this continues as it is, because I think fundamentally it's on the coaching at the minute. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh,
let's move on.
could be worse. You could be St. Louis.
Well, they ain't making the playoffs this year, so I think I'm safe in that. Um, Proposition I made earlier in relation to the LA Kings. There's 4 games, 4 losses for the St. Louis Blues this week. So the dead last in the Central, 2-7-1 record with a -15 on the year. Jim Montgomery, rough luck, mate. But yeah, they lost against the Mammoth 7-4, then lost to the Red Wings 6-4, lost to the Penguins 6-3, and then lost to the Red Wings again 5-2. So shipping goal after goal after goal, the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke before about how I like your, I really like your goalie tandem. I do not like the goalie tandem in St. Louis. I know I vent about Jordan Binnington quite a lot, just more for personal reasons, really. I just don't like him as a guy. I think he's a complete baby. But Binnington and Hoffer are just completely, filling their nappies at the moment at every opportunity. Couldn't catch a cold. They're just absolutely shelling goals, like it's going out of fashion. And again, those first 3 games of the week prior to the Red Wings game, you score 11 goals in 3 games, you're pretty happy with that. But then you've gone and conceded 19 on the other end, and it's just a really bad look. Jim Montgomery's going to have to figure it out. But yeah, in that Utah game, Hoffa getting pulled after 8 minutes, really rough. But just really, really, really struggling at the moment. And games coming up against the Canucks and Blue Jackets, you would say they'd potentially be winnable games, but I've seen nothing this week from St. Louis to indicate they've got a shot. But we'll have to see. Really interested if this carries on, and again, we're going to be bringing the conversation back to Gavin McKenna a lot this year. If this continues, maybe around the Olympic break, maybe around the trade deadline, is someone like Jordan Kyrou, someone whose name kind of gets brought up into the conversation, would be a massive, massive return for someone like him, and puts you well in the conversation for that, for the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes.
Yeah. Who's the better player, Matt? McKenna or Bedard or Celebrini?
Impossible to tell.
I'm joking.
Impossible to tell. Did you
I don't know
know,
whether
by
it's
the way?
a year or too late, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember if I've told you so, but you knew that McKenna and Bedard are cousins, right?
Are they? I didn't know. No, I did not know that.
They are cousins by marriage as opposed to by blood. But they are first cousins, I think. So interesting. Let's get him to Chicago. Let's see what happens there.
Yeah. We'll see. Well, you'll have to.
They'll have to play a lot
bad
worse than
season for
that.
the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Unless they do a trade with the Blues somehow. But anyway, or another horrible team, which we'll obviously end up talking about at some point during this episode. Yeah. Right. Let's go then. We're going to switch it up. We're not going to go both Western divisions and then move over to the East. We're going to mix it up a bit. Head over East to the Metro, which I think is probably the second most interesting division at the moment. Close, but yeah, second for me. So first in that division, moving up, is the New Jersey Devils. Okay, so they've had an outstanding week. Obviously, they beat the Wild 4-1. They beat the Sharks 3-1. I think 2 gimmies there. They then beat the Avalanche in overtime before then losing to the Avalanche back in Denver 8-4, which is quite a shocking result, really. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Devils this week?
They're carrying on where they left off. Really, really good week for them. So they'll have been disappointed to end the week on a on an 8-4 loss to the Avalanche, especially running them so close and getting that win in overtime in the previous game. But yeah, fantastic, and like I say that they've everyone's fit and firing. Bratton, Hughes, and they're all looking really good. Been really impressed with Nico Hischier this season as well. Not necessarily from a points production aspect, although he's not doing bad at that either. But his defensive play really, really good, and he's come back this year, looking like an absolute monster. He's clearly spent kind of his off season very much just in the weight room. He's looking fantastic, and what a two-way player, and a 1-2 punch down the line of Hughes and Hischier. We're finally starting to see it sort of materialize into what we all thought it could be, and yeah, they look brilliant.
Good pick for me for the Selkie. I think Hischier on what's happening right now.
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll do a mid-seasons awards catch up, kind of looking back at our predictions from the start of the year. But yeah, I think Hischier's very much going to be in that conversation. They've got a little road stint coming up against the Sharks, the Kings, and the Ducks. So they are on that California road trip. It'll be nice this time of year. I think I can see them just carrying it on, to be honest. It'll be a good game against the Kings, I think. I think they could go out there and demolish the Sharks potentially. We say this every time. Clip this up for a 3-0 Sharks win though, because just what happens. I think those games against the Kings and the Ducks will be entertaining, to say the least. I think the game against the Ducks will just be absolutely rapid fire. Yeah, 6-game winning streak. Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Great.
6-game winning streak
Great
picked up against the
team.
Wild, sorry.
Yes, 8-game winning streak in total. What a great run that was, and obviously losing to the Avalanche, it is what it is. They're a top team as well. You'll have results like that, but I think they're a strong team. As long as they don't fall apart, I think they're gonna do good
for sure.
But yeah, we'll move on then to the second place team, who've actually moved up 2 spots from last week. Again, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Who'd have thought it? They're doing well this year.
Yeah,
they essentially won 2 of the 4 games this week, but then lost the other 2 in penalty shootouts. So I think they need to go back and they're channeling the spirit of the England national football team, losing penalty shootouts all the time. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Penguins this week?
What a week, and they're just seeming to just carry it on and looking terrific in the process of doing so. Sidney Crosby, 7 points on the week in those 4 games, looking really good. He's hit 1,700 points in his career. Absolutely phenomenal achievement. And who knows where he's going to go? I think he'll definitely have he'll have 1,800 in sights. God knows where he's going to go, man. He's just so good. Really good for them. Malkin as well, looking really good, and Brazeau as well has been a real sort of standout, and again probably not one that we would have expected, but 6 points from the last 4 games, sorry. They're getting some good, some decent goaltending as well at the moment from Seelovs especially, but Tristan Jarry as well is doing okay, and I know Tristan Jarry is someone who's come under a lot of criticism in the past. Looking really good. Couple of tricky road games coming up potentially against the Wild and against the Jets as well. So that'll be a good game against the Jets, I think, and one more opportunity for for Crosby and Taves to face each other one more time.
I just keep thinking with the Penguins, right? This is going to be this is going to be the week where they're going to fall off and go back to where we expect them to be, and it keeps getting pushed back and pushed back a bit. So let's see what happens next week. I think their defense is what's sort of keeping them in games and stuff at the moment, and just getting enough points to push on. But no, really well done to the Penguins, really.
Terrific.
Now we'll move into the third team in the Metro. Then the Carolina Hurricanes, down 2 spots. They were top of the Metro last week, but they dropped down 2 because of probably the toughest slate of games any team's going to face pretty much all season, I would say. Away at Colorado, away at Dallas Stars, and then at home against the Golden Knights. So they won the first game in a penalty shootout against the Avalanche and then lost against the Stars and the Golden Knights. So you can't begrudge them that, but I mean, is this sort of a future foresight of what might happen in the playoffs where they do well in the regular season but then just don't cut the mustard against the top teams?
Yeah, potentially. We might see that, but I think it's one of those, isn't it? Some weeks you come up with some really tough schedules, and this has absolutely been one of those. And 2 points on the 3 games, not a disaster at all as far as I'm concerned. They're still 6-3-0 on the season, so still looking really strong. And they've still got a couple of games in hand on some of those other teams as well. So they've got the Islanders and Bruins coming up. I'm sure they'll be looking to get back in the win column. Not seeing a whole load from Nikolai Ehlers at the moment. I think we maybe would have expected to see a little bit more from him, but I still think that Carolina are still looking really strong.
Agreed. Ehlers is on my fantasy team. For how much longer, I'm not quite sure. I just think, again, opposite to the Penguins, when are they going to come back down? Ehlers surely has to score a goal at some point. I just know the minute I drop him, he'll score a hat-trick. But yeah, not really much to say about the Hurricanes. I'm not panicking about them after this week, but I was hoping for their sake they might have won 2 out of the 3 of these games just to feel better about their chances.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, a weird week for the Washington Capitals. So they had 3 games away at Columbus Blue Jackets, which they won 5-1. They then got demolished 7-1 against the Senators before losing in a shutout, very close game, 1-0 against the Dallas Stars. So they got a record 6-4-0 on the record so far this year. But what are your thoughts about the Capitals?
Yeah, a bit of a weird week for them, really, wasn't it? A little tricky. We're still waiting on goal number 900 from Alex Ovechkin. 899 he's sat on at the moment. A bit of that close game against the against the Stars last night. That they'll really have wanted that one back against the Senators. That was a rough game, really rough game. But again, great win against the Blue Jackets before that. So yeah, a little bit up and down at the moment. Been really impressed with Tom Wilson this week. Not this week, sorry, this season. I was made to say. He's looked really, really strong, really good. But yeah, bad day at the office against the Senators and a close one against the Stars. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I think depending sort of how the Penguins do will, I think, sort of dictate how that third spot in the Metro playoffs starts to shape up. But if they don't get themselves in there, I still think they're a playoff team. I still think whether it's by hook or by crook, third place in their division or wild card, I think they'll still make their way in there.
Yeah, I think they are a good team. Again, coming back down from the great year last year, I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff or anything like that. But
no.
So, yeah, solid week taking out that Senators game. Everyone has a bad day at the office sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, they do.
We'll go on to the fifth then. We'll go into the 5th place team then. The Philadelphia Flyers sitting on 11 points. Weird week for them this year as well. I think they've took read the playbook of potentially the German national football team, winning penalty shootouts. So they lost against the Senators to start off the week, losing 2-1, but then beat the Islanders and Penguins on penalties. It gives them a 5-3-1 record on the year, which is pretty pretty good for them, I'd say, at this point of the year. But yeah, what do you think about the Flyers? Are they going to make a push? Do you think?
Yeah, I think they're doing a little better than we expected of them. Really, like I said, they're playing in a lot of very close games at the moment. We talk all the time about sort of coin flips and everything about how that looks for teams. And on another week, they could have come away with 3 losses. But yeah, it's nice to see. I am happy to see Trevor Zegras being productive over there. He's a player I like. I think he's come under a lot of unfair criticism in his career, I think, purely for being a guy who has a little bit of personality. But I think that he's looking. He's had a good start to his career over there, and point per game at the moment, looking good. But I think somewhere maybe around the middle of the pack is exactly where the Philadelphia Flyers are going to balance out for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on, obviously Grant Hathaway against the Islanders had a bit of a rumble tumble game for Hathaway there. There's several sort of fights and getting in and involved in stuff. But then last night, I'm not sure whether you've seen this actually. I just caught wind of it now against the Penguins. They what happened in the third period? They had 4 players on either side all go out for unsportsmanlike conduct. Drysdale, Forster, Tippett, and Zegras for the Flyers, and Akari, Witherspoon, Crosby, and Shea for the Penguins. Did you catch that or?
I didn't. No, no, I didn't. Was it all just a bit? It all just sort of fall apart a little bit, or?
Yeah, I must admit, this is great reporting and great recording on this thing. I haven't actually seen it myself. I was hoping you saw it, but I've just noted it now while I was just checking some stats and stuff like that. But yeah, I wonder what happened there, eh? A little bit of Pennsylvania rivalry going on.
Yeah, it always has an opportunity to devolve into that, doesn't it? A little bit.
Yeah, well, we saw it in the preseason with Florida and Tampa, don't we? The rivalries
Absolutely just.
sometimes get ahead of themselves, maybe. But yeah,
Yeah.
well, we'll move on from that, considering we know nothing about it. Um, going on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, who move up 1 spot to 6th in the Metro. Um, Again, a bit of a weak start this year for Columbus, but they lost against the Capitals 5-1. They beat the Penguins in penalties and then won in overtime against the Sabres. So they actually won 2 of the 3 games, but not convincing by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Again, I don't. It's hard to really think about what the Blue Jackets are, and they're really difficult to kind of think about in that regard because we're just not too sure. So, yeah, again, they're kind of sitting around the middle of the pack, and I think that's probably roughly where they would expect to be, which is a shame. I mean, so they've got some fantastic players on that team, the likes of Marchenko and Werenski and Jenner, Fantilli, the likes of those, and I don't mind their goaltenders in Merzlikins and Greaves either. I think they're especially Jet Greaves, I think is not a bad rotational option. Yeah, they're just kind of sat around the middle at the moment. I think it's kind of a pocket of teams where they're not expected to be around the bottom. They're not really expected to contend for the playoffs. And I think that's kind of where the Blue Jackets fall this season. And I don't think that's a great place to be.
No, it's they've fallen in the territory of sort of like the Seattle Kraken and what was the Utah Mammoth, where you're the kind of purgatory where you don't really end up watching them. I made no notes this week on how the Columbus Blue Jackets have performed. Like, watch some highlights, but nothing's inspired me to be like, right, this is the analysis on this team right now. They're kind of just sort of floating. I mean, that may be better from what they were a few years ago, where they were stinky and horrible. So I guess progress in one fashion, but it's not ideal. They got games against the Maple Leafs, the Blues, and the Islanders coming up. So I mean, can we see them become a little bit more relevant? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll just have to see what happens, won't we? Because I just think it might be potentially one for the one to archive and move on this season. I think potentially for that season for the Blue Jackets, which is a shame.
Yeah. Right. So we move on to one of the weirder teams in the league at the moment, as we keep talking about the New York Rangers, currently seventh, down one. They're not having the season they wanted with Mike Sullivan. 10 points, 4-5-2 record. What do you make of the Rangers? I don't think they're not a good team, are they?
No, it would appear not. Um, yeah, really, really bizarre. Yeah, they've got 10 points after 11 games, and they're just looking really rough at the moment. I think we were all expecting a massive bounce back from the Rangers this year, and whilst they're getting outstanding goaltending from Shesterkin, in my opinion, barring that game against the Sharks, which was obviously a bit of a rough one, but I think all in all, I think it'd be fair to say he is having a good year. It's just it's not clicking for them throughout the rest of the lineup, and they're really struggling at the moment. Obviously, they got that shutout win against the Canucks last night, which they'll hope can kind of move them forward. Obviously, they're in the middle of a road trip at the moment. They've still got the Oilers and the Kraken to play before they presumably return back to the Garden. But yeah, it's again, they've been terrible at home this year, and I think that's for a team like the Rangers, that's just not what they would have wanted. And again, they're another team in their centennial season, and it has a potential to be a centennial to forget for them.
Yeah, it's really shocking. I would have thought they would bounce back a bit more than they have done this year, but they just can't get any sort of offense going, really. Yeah, they scored five against the Sharks, but you'd expect every team to score five against the Sharks, but they're just very low scoring, uh, pretty good defensively for the most part, but just not great complete hockey at the moment. They need to find their feet.
Yeah, completely.
And
It's a real struggle. It's a real struggle for them. But again, they're sat there with the Islanders propping up the division.
yeah, well, we'll go on to the Islanders, and despite them being route to the bottom of the Metro at the moment with 9 points and things like that. I think there are some a bit more promising signs coming out of the Islanders rather than the Rangers. They came out and beat the Red Wings 7-2, which was a really weird game if you caught that. But then they lost in a penalty shootout against the Flyers and then lost against the Bruins. So again, poor poor results. Obviously, only winning one out of the three games. But what are your thoughts on the Islanders? Are they still a team trying to work it out? Are they coming up?
Yeah, very much so. I think they're trying to figure out exactly what they are moving forward. Yeah, I did well. Didn't catch the whole game, but saw the condensed, extended highlights against the Red Wings. Yeah, it was a crazy game. Really good win for them, and I think you look in contrast across the two teams from New York, and you've got one team who aren't playing that well, and it's all kind of doom and gloom as far as the Rangers are concerned. The Islanders aren't necessarily playing well, but they've definitely got a lot more silver linings to their play. They're still getting, really consistent play out of Matthew Schaefer. Bo Horvat's still looking good. Barzal's, still looking good and has most importantly stayed healthy for them. They've got quite a, they've got the Hurricanes, Capitals, and Blue Jackets in their next three, so not expecting too much from them there. Potentially might sneak a win in there somewhere, but yeah, I think this is kind of what the New York Islanders are certainly now and potentially for the foreseeable.
Yeah, I think they're a team on the up, and even though they're dead last, I think the fans can be happier what they by what they're doing. But yeah, not going to be a playoff team, I don't think, this year by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not even slightly. One team moving into the next division, into the Atlantic, that I think will definitely be a playoff team, is the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes, what a team! What a fun team to watch is Montreal Canadiens. Um, they came in with sorry in second place in the division, and then sort of behind the trailblazing Detroit Red Wings, but then they obviously moved up that one spot after 3 wins and 1 loss. Okay, a Western road trip for them against the Flames, Oilers, Canucks, and Kraken. The thing I was impressed about this team and continue to be impressed by it is despite they're young, they're the young nature, young average age, they're playing with such mature heads on their shoulders. Two of their games went to overtime and they won both of them. And every single game this week was essentially one goal in it. But they've come out on the right sides of most of them, which just goes to show how sort of a great rounded team that they are. They're gritty. A great team to watch.
Yeah, they really have been, and Cole Caulfield is proving to be one of the one of the most clutch forwards in the league. He's now set the franchise record with the Montreal Canadiens for the most overtime winning goals in franchise history. So, already at the at the young age that he's at as well, such a talented player. And I know certain hockey players and everything. There seems to be this sort of weird trope about smaller players, and how much they're going to struggle and how much they're not going to be able to sort of kind of exert their talent on the game due to their stature. But try telling Cole Caulfield that he's looking absolutely tremendous, and what a player. And they're having getting a great season out of Nick Suzuki as well, and Ivan Demidov showing that he can be everything that he is. He's currently kind of leading the league for rookie points at the moment, and what a team! Just super exciting, and they're a kind of a box office watch every time at the moment.
Yeah, really, really excited. I can't see how or where they're going to fall down. Really, they're going to be in the playoffs, and then they're going to do really well. I think.
Yeah. I think let's not underestimate as well that addition of Noah Dobson as well from the Islanders. Obviously, they gave up a lot to get him, but what a quality defenseman to add. A bit of experience and veteran leadership to that team. He's still obviously got a lot of his best years ahead of him, Dobson, but he's been playing fantastic as well, and they've just been really exciting to watch every single time they've taken to the ice this season. Next game coming up against the Senators, again, I think I could see him, getting another win.
Yeah, I can as well. Obviously, solitary game next week. Obviously, they played 11 games already, so it all averages out. But I think with that break as well, it gives them a good time to get refreshed and keep going on. But yeah. Move into the second team then. Mentioned them briefly just before, but the Detroit Red Wings had a mixed week. They lost their first two games against the Sabres and the Islanders, which I think this might be stereotypical Detroit Red Wings, where they get on a hot streak and lose against two sort of weaker teams, but then beat the Blues twice fairly convincingly in both games. So I still think they're a solid team with the Red Wings.
Yeah, very solid, and I think Detroit were one of those teams going into the season that we talked about that sort of middling area of the league where you don't want to be, and I think that's where a lot of people had Detroit kind of sitting this year. But they're doing really well. They're proving a lot of people wrong, and they're getting really good production from their veterans and young players alike. So really impressive from them so far. Again, they're another team with a California road trip with the Kings, Ducks, and Sharks coming up. They're 7-3-0 at the moment. Maybe they'll be hoping they can maybe get up to 9 wins on the season with those three games. I don't think that would be unrealistic.
Yeah, I think that's what they need to do to sort of prove themselves and prove to me that they are a team to be taken seriously. Then they're not just off to a hot start. I think back to sort of the Wild last year, who went off onto an absolute great start and then sort of petered out to where they were sort of meant to be over the course of the season. Obviously, crunch time Detroit, I think, especially on an away trip.
No, for sure. But really impressive for them, and they'll just be hoping they can continue it.
Right, a team who are on the up. They moved up a spot, but also I still get some funny feelings that they're not quite at the level they want to be at. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they're sitting on 11 points, record 5-4-1, but they lost against the Sabres 5-3 away from home before beating them in overtime 4-3, and then won a very close sort of lucky game against the Flames 4-3. So, what are your thoughts on the Maple Leafs? I think they're still struggling, aren't they?
They are, but they are still finding ways to get wins. You know, I think getting a funny feeling about the Maple Leafs, I think, is completely natural. And I think it happens to every single hockey fan, let alone Maple Leafs fans. Like that's a tough ride. Um, but yeah, I still think they've got another couple of gears to go yet. But with that in mind, they're still third place in their division. They're still on 11 points. They're still getting production from from Nylander and Tavares and Nyes. And they're looking, those three guys in particular are looking really sharp. So they're just going to have to get a little bit of depth through it, and I think some more solid goaltending as well. And I think they'll be hoping they can get Joseph Woll back whenever he's ready. Because at the moment I think Stolarz is struggling a little bit, even with 2 wins from 2 games from Primo as well. But yeah, I think they'll certainly be wanting a bit more from Stolarz.
Yeah, agreed. I watched a bit of that Flames game last night. This is one of the sort of the earlier ones being played, and the Flames went 1-0 early, and then I think they played the majority of the first period on the power play, did the Maple Leafs, and they weren't getting much shots on goal. Obviously, they did come out and won the game, but I wasn't inspired by them that they should be smashing one of the worst teams in the league at the moment, especially when they're so dominant on the power play with all the star-studded players, but they don't seem to be getting there. I'm a bit touchy about the Maple Leafs. There's a couple of teams in this division who are lower down than you'd expect, who might make a comeback, and if they don't keep up, then the Maple Leafs might be the one that miss out if they're not careful.
Yeah, potentially, but I'm sure they'll find that other gear. They've been round the block enough times now. I'm sure they'll be hoping they can get it sorted.
Yeah. Right. So we'll move on then to the Berserker team is what I'm going to be sort of thinking of as at the moment. The Ottawa Senators, again moving up in the division, 2 spots to 4th, record 5-5-1. They've got 3 wins out of their 4 games this week. They beat the Flyers 2-1. And then before the run of games where 7 goals seems to be the winning margin. They beat the Capitals 7-1 in that weird game there. Beat the Bruins 7-2 in a dominant performance, and then obviously they lost 7-3 to your Blackhawks. So even though they ain't got to Chuck to sort of rely on, they seem to be doing fairly well, the Senators.
Yeah, they're finding ways to win, aren't they? I would even go a step further with that. The Capitals and Bruins games, they absolutely, blew them out the water. So some really impressive performances there, and I think they came up against, just a Blackhawks team last night who, were just really, really up for it. And obviously they were the Senators were on their second night of back-to-backs. And I think they just kind of got run out the building. But yeah, they're looking really good. And I think they're certainly going to be, they're not going to gift Toronto that 3rd spot if it comes to that. They're going to make them fight for it. They're looking really good. Getting some good goaltending from Linus Ullmark, obviously barring last night. They're doing well at the moment.
Yeah. No, I think they're a very solid team. Right, moving on then to the next team in the division. Down 2 spots this week, the Florida Panthers, currently 5th, record of 5-5-1. I'm starting to get nervous how Florida fans that are all these injuries still continuing to have an impact on your lineup. Obviously, we know the players that have been out. Marchand's been out a few games as well for personal reasons as well. But they lost 5-3 against the Penguins. They did come out and shut out the Golden Knights and win 3-0. So that was a championship performance. But then they lost in the penalty shootout to the Ducks last night 3-2. What do you think of the Panthers?
Yeah, we spoke about this a little bit last week, didn't we? In the fact that potentially those, the fatigue of those 3 back-to-back cup finals, potentially sort of dragging on them a little bit. Yeah, it's really tough, isn't it? They're kind of struggling a little bit at the moment. But I'm never one to write the Florida Panthers off. Let's put it that way. But I just think they'll be a little bit nervous about that start to the season, and I think if they lose a couple more guys, they're going to be really in a tough spot. So yeah, we'll have to see. They're still getting some good play up and up and down the lineup, and say it was a terrific result against the Golden Knights, and a shootout is an absolute 50-50 at the end of the day. And the Penguins are playing really well at the moment, so on paper at face value, it's probably not a horrible week, but I think maybe people would have just expected a bit more from them. However, what we do know about the Panthers is that they are far from regular season juggernauts.
Yeah, they are. They're not. But I agree with your point. They're always sort of thereabouts. They should probably come good, but again, that often relies on how well the other teams are performing in the division. And when you got Montreal taking a big step up, you got Detroit seemingly on a heater as well. Are there just too many sort of those middling teams where you could just lose out by proxy of the other team stepping up a little bit, even if you're doing all right? You got Tampa Bay. We're going to come to. We're also going to be on the up and comer. So it's a really tricky time for the Panthers, and I feel like there's a lot of teams who are having a tricky time of it at the moment. But that's sort of the middle stirring pot of the NHL league really at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few teams sort of falling into that region.
We will briefly glance over the Buffalo Sabres because as much as they try to stay relevant in this league, I still have no interest in them. We'll mention that they've won 2 games and lost 2 games in overtime, so they've got points from every single game this week, including a victory against the Red Wings, Maple Leafs, and then overtime losses against the Maple Leafs and the Blue Jackets. So they got the Bruins and Capitals coming up. Are they continuing to do well? I don't know, but even though the games have been close and they've put on maybe a few good games of hockey, I still don't think they're going to be a team of any relevance come March time.
No, probably not. Better week from them. They are starting to figure it out a little bit. But yeah, I think the highlight for me this week with the Sabres was watching Alex Tuch get absolutely floored by Jake McCabe. Yeah, McCabe's a tough. He's a tough customer. But Tuch's a big boy as well, and yeah, he got absolutely flattened.
But yeah, we'll move on unless you want to talk about the Buffalo anymore.
Nope.
Good. Right. Tampa Bay Lightning, 7th place, moving up 1 spot off the bottom. 4 games this week. They're getting a lot more on track, and they had a really rough start to the season, which is why they're still quite far down. But they lost against your Blackhawks, but then beat the Ducks, Golden Knights, and Predators. So I think they're well on their way to getting back to where we would expect them to be, I think, in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, they're starting to pick up a little bit as well. Another team with a 4-4-2 record this year. Yeah, they're improving. They're getting there, and a little bit of a slow start, but I can see them maybe going on a little bit of a run in the run up to Christmas. Obviously, they've got the Stars and the Mammoth coming up next, which not easy games by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they're starting to hit a bit of form just at the right time, and I think it'll do them the world of good.
Yeah. Not really much more to say about the Tampa Bay for me. I just think they are a team that's up and coming. They're playing decent hockey. They're getting the results and beating teams they should be doing, and even maybe ones they shouldn't be in the Golden Knights. Obviously lost against your Blackhawks, but I think your Blackhawks could beat anyone on the day at the minute. So, yeah, good week for the Lightning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we'll touch on the 8th team in the division, the Boston Bruins. I was quietly surprised when I was putting together this plan and keep an eye on teams. I always think that they're sort of doing better than they are, but you got a record of 5-7-0. They lost games against the Ducks and the Senators this week, conceded 7 in both of those games, but also beating the Avalanche and then beating the Islanders. So a bit of hot and cold Bruins at the moment up in New England.
Yeah, they're loss win in their last 4. Yeah, just really up and down at the moment, and yeah, a bit surprising to see them at the bottom of the division at the moment. But they do still have 10 points, so I think there's a lot of place for wiggle room with those with a lot of the teams in that division, and there's going to be a lot of shifting around and swapping, I think. Um, but yeah, I think again they were terrible last year. Let's not beat around the bush with that. We expected them to be better this year, and I think them being better this year, they're another team that could just fall into that purgatory for a year. But then they'll be hoping to build on it. Come the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got games against the Sabres and the Hurricanes this week. I mean, I think they'd want to split the two. They could easily lose both of those. But yeah, not much more to say really for the bottom team Bruins at the moment.
No,
For me.
no.
Now we'll move into the Pacific Division. First team in the league. Surprise, surprise. Vegas Golden Knights. Though they've had a pretty poor week of it really. They lost against the Panthers, being shut out. Lost in overtime against the Lightning, but then did beat the Hurricanes 6-3. So return a bit more to normal. Eichel again putting the puck in the net and continuing on at a crazy rate of point production, pretty much 2 points per game player at the minute. But yeah, what do you think about the Golden Knights? Anything more than we don't already know?
No, not for me. They're just continuing to be exceptional. Yeah, tricky week, but a couple of losses in there, but they face some good opposition. Jack Eichel is, again, when we do that mid-season review, providing he keeps playing the way he's playing, I think Jack Eichel's going to be everyone's favourite for the Hart Trophy. And they'll look at that contract that he signed. That will look like an absolute bargain. Yeah, he's still playing great. Dorofeyev's still scoring the goals as well. 9 goals and 1 assist in 10 games played this season. So definitely a shooter first. But yeah, they're looking terrific, aren't they? And they've got the Avalanche coming up next. So again, it's not it's not gonna ease up for them anytime soon. So yeah, we'll just have to hope their goalkeeping can stay consistent enough to get them over the line and backstop their sort of elite offense at the moment.
Again, the benefit of playing probably the weakest division at the minute in hockey. So when they come up against division rivals more in games, I think they're going to rack up the points, rack up the goals, and see you in the playoffs, Vegas.
Yeah,
See how
completely
you
agree.
do.
Completely agree.
In somewhat of a surprise, the Seattle Kraken are second place in this division with 13 points. They got points from every game this week. They shut out the Jets 3-0 away from home. Wow. Beat the Oilers 3-2 and then lost in overtime to the Montreal Canadiens, which is no great shake there. So, great week by Decord in goal with a shutout and good save percentages there. They're doing well, aren't they, Seattle? We're gonna have to watch them, aren't we?
Yeah, they really are, and yeah, they were a team we discussed before the season. I mean, we had them 28th in our power rankings before the year began, and we were, in retrospect, probably overly critical on this Seattle team and talked about how they were, they risked fading into obscurity and they weren't a particularly watchable team. But I haven't watched too much of them this year. I don't know whether they're watchable or not, but they're certainly stacking up wins. And yeah, they're getting great goaltending from Joey Decord at the moment. And yeah, that away shutout against the Jets was a great result. And yeah, they're just looking really really sharp at the moment. And yeah, I'm sure they'll be hoping they can keep that going as long as possible. I will say they are second in the division with a 5-2-3 record, but they are still on a -1 goal differential, even with that shutout against the Jets. So, yeah, I think I don't know if it's going to. I don't know if it's maybe going to level out over the course of the year, but certainly for now they'll be happy with the start.
Absolutely. And what they got to do is to keep going is to keep half an eye on the LA Kings, who after beating the Sabres, not the Sabres, beating the Blues last week to guarantee themselves a playoff spot. They've come out and played some good hockey and back on track. They're still on a -3 plus minus, but they boast wins in overtime against the Stars, wins against the Blackhawks and the Sharks as well, but did lose in a penalty shootout against the Predators. So, though a potentially weaker slate of games, they're getting points on the board. They're on the up, and I do think they'll be a playoff team come to the end of the year.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Obviously, they've got the Red Wings and the Devils coming up next for them. That's going to be a tricky couple of games, just with how they've started. But yeah, they've really turned the screw this week and have picked up 7 points of the 8 available, which same as Dallas. So they've looked really good. Like I was saying when they played the Blackhawks earlier, they're a really good team at just when they take a lead, at just sort of smothering the opposition and doing what they can to try and sort of shut it down. Obviously, they left it pretty late against the Sharks yesterday, but yeah, I've been impressed with them. Adrian Kempe's playing really well, and Quinton Byfield's playing well as well at the moment. So, yeah, still obviously they'll still be hoping they can get Kopitar back as soon as they can. But yeah,
he's back. I think he's
is
back.
he? Have they deactivated him off
back, yeah.
off IR? Oh, got you.
Yeah, I think he played last night, but he put up a 0-point performance for me in fantasy. So thanks for that. But yeah,
got you. Must have missed that for that reason then. But so yeah, even in that case, then they'll be really glad to have him back. So yeah, they'll just be hoping that they can. I think you're absolutely right. They're a playoff team for me.
Yeah. Now, our next team, a playoff team, Edmonton Oilers. Controversial question that. They moved up one spot. They've had a pretty weird week. Every time I looked at them, I thought they were losing, but they have come out with 2 wins, an overtime loss, and a loss. They beat the Canadiens and the Mammoth, but lost to the Kraken and lost in overtime to the Canucks. So they kind of flipped to what you would have thought would have happened, really. But I will lead off with this question: are they a playoff team, Matt?
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are. They'll be there. They'll be there come the end of the year. They can't not be. They've just got too much talent for it not to happen. And I think especially you look at that division, you look at a team like Seattle at the moment who are playing well, but very much do have the potential to slide. I think the Oilers will be absolutely fine. We've seen they've got the capabilities of beating teams like the Canadiens and the Mammoth and stuff, so they can go toe to toe with some really good opposition. I think that won't be a problem for them at all. So they've got the Rangers and the Blackhawks coming up, which again, for their sake, I'm hoping they'll be hoping for a couple of wins there. They will have a tough go of it against the Blackhawks, of course, but of course I would say that. I've got no concerns about the Oilers. They're struggling a little bit at the moment now, but they'll be there.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. I thought I'd put in a hot take there to see how it would go down. I think you've squashed it in expert professionalism. I just think the question remains: is it goaltending? Even if they're winning or losing, they can't seem to get a keeper to get over a 900 save percentage in a game. So I think that's what it essentially comes down to, really, for the Oilers. But it's an age-old question.
Same old problem, isn't it? Same old issue.
Same old. Right. Next team, and we'll start to speed through some of these, I think. But the Anaheim Ducks, I think, nice, fun team. One of my pet teams that I keep on saying, but they've had a good week. They beat the Bruins 7-5, beat the Panthers in a shootout, and lost to the Lightning in a very close game, 4-3. Again, I think they're a team on the up and up. I think they're in with a shout with a wild card spot if they pull the finger out this year, the Ducks. But yeah, any particular comments about them?
No, other than to echo what you just said, they're playing really well. We're seeing the creativity from all the young players, looking really nice at the moment. And I think they're going to be one of the favourite teams for a wildcard spot. And that would represent a really good year for them, a really good experience for those young players, regardless of how far they get. And you're seeing the coaching quality that they have in Joel Quenneville. But yeah, I like the Ducks. I'm the same as you. I like them as a team. I like what they're about. I like the makeup of their squad. And yeah, they're certainly a team that I'll be rooting for. Come the crunch time of the season.
So as long as they don't come up against your Blackhawks,
I'd fancy them. I'd fancy the Blackhawks. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, no, Freudian slip there. Um, Sixth team in the division, down 4 spots, terrible week, probably the biggest drop and the worst week out of everyone. The Vancouver Canucks, which could not seem to get anything going. They lost some close games, I guess. They lost against the Predators 2-1, Habs 4-3, lost against the Rangers 2-0 in a shutout, but then did beat the Oilers in overtime. But poor results this week for the Canucks.
Yeah, another team in that kind of middling area potentially. Yeah, 5-6-0 on the season, looking quite shaky at the moment, and just a bad week for them, I think, which will be a shame for them. With 3 of those games coming at home, especially to get shut out at home as well is never good. Um, they go on the road now against the Blues and the Wild. I'm sure they'll fancy themselves to get some points there. But I mean, they're going to have to if they want to have sort of any chance of sort of wildcard contention or anything like that. Not a team I see making the playoffs through their allocated divisional spots. I think if they want to have to do it, they're going to have to do it through a wildcard position. But yeah, rough for them. But potentially with the makeup of that Vancouver squad at the moment, that could just be sort of what they are.
Yeah, a very hot and cold team. I think they're going to be very streaky. I think there'll be a few weeks where we talk about them doing really well, and weeks where we tell them that we talk about how they're not like they've had an awful week. But I think that's just sort of the makeup of this team, and they need to be more stable, really.
Yeah, no,
Um,
completely agree.
right. And last week we sort of rounded off these two teams as sort of a winner, and I kind of propose we do the same. I still think they're the worst two teams in hockey. Seventh place, the San Jose Sharks, and in eighth is the Calgary Flames. They haven't moved. They got the less points than anyone else in the league, with 6 and 5 respectively. They're just losing games and not really entirely looking competitive. The Sharks have they won 2 games this week, believe it or not, and lost 2, so might be a bit of progress. But they've won both in overtime to the Rangers and against my Wild, both by the scores of 6-5. Obviously, with the goals in overtime. Again, it's just their defense is shocking, and on some days they manage to score enough to get up there. But what are your thoughts about the Sharks?
Yeah, obviously it was an outstanding performance, wasn't it, from Celebrini against the Rangers? He had a 5 point game, I think, as well as a hat trick. So, when they're having those nights where their young stars are able to sort of pull it out the bag, those are really exciting moments for them. But yeah, they're poor. Especially defensively, they just look really, really weak and porous, and they're not getting great goaltending at the moment. And I mean, this is what we knew the Sharks would be. And yeah, they're just holding out for those sort of good moments from Celebrini and Smith and co. I mean, Will Smith is kind of going a little bit rogue at the moment and kind of seemingly just ignoring the coach and playing how he wants to play. But yeah, their head coach didn't have to trade one of his children in order to get a win. So I'm sure he will be happy with that. I don't know if you saw those comments from him.
No, I didn't
No,
actually. I was
no.
wondering what tack you were going down there.
After
But
they hit
edgy
their
humour.
after they hit their 17 loss streak, the head coach was saying that at this point he'd trade one of his children for a win, which was like,
Gosh. Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
dad of the year. And then yeah, on the Flames again, a bit up and down, but 3 points on the week, getting a point against the Habs. I'm sure they'll be quite happy with that. And they did put in quite a commanding win against the Rangers, but and they'll have been really glad to get Matt Coronato back as well. Obviously, he's a big piece for them. But yeah, I
He
think.
was a healthy scratch. Sorry, against the
Oh,
Rangers.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
misread
Those my
misread the
notes
notes there.
there. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird for the Flames. Obviously, they've got a top goaltender in Wolf. I don't think none of this is on him.
No.
They were just really struggling with generating any kind of offense, like getting any kind of points, goals, etc. And that's how they were losing. And the defense isn't generally too bad. But then, from what I've seen, I didn't necessarily think it was Coronato's fault. But then they come up against the Rangers. He's a healthy scratch against them, and then they won 5-1. And you think, surely it's that just by healthy scratching your young recently signed first line forward is not going to generate a 5-1 win against a team, but it seemed to have done so. And then they came back. They played against the Maple Leafs and they put him on the fourth line. And they lost against the Maple Leafs 4-3. So very confusing times in Calgary. I do wonder whether they kind of almost sort of self-sabotaging a little bit for McKenna. I don't know, but yeah, weird.
We've seen it happen.
Vibes. Weird vibes with the Flames as with the Sharks. I don't quite know what's going on, but yeah, rough two teams there to finish out on, really.
Yeah. Right, just before we wrap up, anyway, we'll just have a quick rundown points wise for the week. Top points in the league still being led with Jack Eichel. He's on 19 for the season, and also Nathan McKinnon just behind him on 17, tied with Nick Schmaltz. Which again is great news for him. Top goal scorers, you've got Dorofeyev, McKinnon, Caulfield, and Jack Hughes on 9 goals at the moment, all playing really, really well. Say Dorofeyev's just being an absolute clutch magnet this season, not as much as Cole Caulfield. He's absolutely hammering it. And then the best PBP award this week for the for the penalty minutes, Emil Lilleberg of the Tampa Bay Lightning. 10 games played, no goals, no assists, 31 penalty minutes. That's my guy right there.
proper enforcer.
Yeah, I mean he's not a guy for his production, is he? He's got 1 career goal. But yeah, just out there, just dropping gloves and giving away penalties, and yeah, he is this show's hero of the week.
Having fun of that. I'd also put in a shout out for Scott Mayfield for the Islanders. Your first line D man. He's putting in a few shifts. 21 minutes this week in the penalty box in 3 games. So that's pretty much a game's worth of minutes for a D man. He's spent in the penalty box out of the 3 games, just purely by dropping the mitts and having a good old rough and tumble. But yeah, Emil Lilleberg is our hero.
For this week at least. Awesome stuff. Another good week of NHL hockey. Obviously great last night, having all 32 teams in action. Obviously makes it a little bit harder for us to plan, but no, thank you as always for sticking with us. Do you want me to sign us out, Nathaniel, or did you have anything further from yourself?
Lead us out, Matt. Go on.
No problem. Well, as always, guys, you can find us on X and Instagram at the PBP Podcast. You can also get in contact with us via Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com. If you've got any comments, feedback, anything you'd like us to discuss in relation to the world of the NHL or anything else for that matter. If you want to leave us a 5-star review on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that'd be much appreciated. Really helps us out, really helps more people find the show as well, which would be, super helpful and really help us out. So, any good feedback is always appreciated. And, we'll be back with another episode on Friday, I think, with another shorter one for you. But as always, thanks for sticking with us and being on this journey with us. It's a lot of fun.